With Walmart summer style, you can always treat yourself.
No, we're supposed to say, who knew? If anyone else.
You are invisible to most of the universe. Right now, at this exact moment, there are 2 trillion galaxies scattered across 93 billion light years of space, and you will never see 90% of them. Not because you lack a telescope, not because they're hidden behind dust or gas or the glare of nearer stars, but because they are simply too far, too faint, too impossibly distant for any instrument humanity has ever built to detect. They exist. They are out there. Entire cities, stars, worlds, black holes, collisions, births, deaths, all of it happening in a darkness so complete that no photon from those galaxies will ever reach Earth. And yet we know they're there. We've counted them. Astronomers have done the math, traced the structure of the cosmos, and arrived at a number that should make you stop and reconsider what you think you know of 2 trillion galaxies, 10 times more than we believed just a decade ago, each one a vast island universe governed by forces we're only beginning to understand. Supermassive black holes 40 billion times the mass of our sun. Most galaxies made almost entirely of invisible matter. Ancient structures that formed just 300 million years after the Big Bang, when the universe was still learning how to make light. And in 6 billion years, the galaxy you're standing in right now will collide with its nearest neighbor in a slow, violent dance that will reshape both beyond recognition. This is not a story about distant objects that don't concern you. This is the story of where you are, what you're made of, and what happens when you realize that every galaxy is a time capsule, and the light reaching your eyes tonight left its source long before your species existed. To look up is to look back, and the universe is still writing. Welcome to Magnetic Space. If you're new here, please subscribe. We make these documentaries every day, and honestly, we'd love to have you along for the ride. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now settle in. This is going to be a good one. We need to talk about something uncomfortable. The universe you think you know, the one with its neat census of 100 billion galaxies scattered across the cosmic void like grains of sand on a beach, that universe doesn't exist. It never did. In 2016, led by Christopher Consellis at the University of Nottingham, took decades of data from the Hubble Space Telescope, the Spitzer Space Telescope, Chandra Herschel, and XMM Newton, fed it through a mathematical model designed to account for what we couldn't see, and came back with a number that made the entire field stop mid-sentence. 2 trillion galaxies, not 100 billion, not 200 billion. 2 trillion with a T, as in 10 times more than the textbooks said. As in 90% of the galaxies in the observable universe have been sitting in the dark this entire time, while we drew our confident maps and wrote our confident papers about a cosmos we had barely begun to glimpse. Consellis himself said it plainly. This is very surprising, which, in the language of astronomers who spend their careers being careful with words, translates roughly to, we have no idea what we've been looking at. The observable universe, the bubble of space we can theoretically detect from Earth, spans roughly 90 billion light years from edge to edge. That number is larger than the age of the universe might suggest, because space itself has been expanding the entire time light has been traveling through it. A photon that left a distant galaxy 13 billion years ago has been racing toward us at the speed of light, while the galaxy it came from has been carried away by the expansion of space in the opposite direction. By the time that photon reaches a telescope on Earth, the object that emitted it is no longer where it appears to be. It's more than 40 billion light years away now, receding faster every second. This is not a theory. This is measurable, observable, repeatedly confirmed reality. And inside that 93 billion light-year bubble, we now know there are at least 2 trillion galaxies. At least. That's the lower bound, the number we're confident about. The actual total could be higher. Nobody knows. What we do know is that the Hubble Space Telescope, the single most successful observatory ever launched, the instrument that spent more than 3 decades staring into the deepest patches of empty sky and pulling back images of galaxies older than dirt, that telescope has seen roughly 10% of what's actually out there. 10%. The rest is invisible, not because it doesn't exist, not because it's hiding behind something, but because the universe is older, larger, and stranger than the tools we built to look at it were designed to handle. And this brings us to the cosmic web. If you've seen images of the large-scale structure of the universe, the ones that look like a sponge made of light with vast dark voids between glowing filaments, you've seen a cartoon. A useful cartoon, but a cartoon nonetheless. The cosmic web is the name astronomers gave to the way matter is distributed across the universe at the largest scales. Galaxies don't scatter randomly through space like marbles tossed into a pool. They cluster. They line up along invisible threads of dark matter that stretch across hundreds of millions of light years. Where those threads intersect, galaxies pile up into massive clusters containing thousands of individual systems. Between the threads, there's almost nothing. Voids. Regions of space so empty that if you stood in the middle of one and looked in every direction, you might see fewer galaxies than you can count on your hands. The cosmic web is not a metaphor. It is the skeleton of the universe. And it formed in the first few 100 million years after the Big Bang, when tiny fluctuations in the density of matter, differences of less than 1 part in 100,000, began to collapse under their own gravity. Dark matter clumped first because it doesn't interact with light or normal matter except through gravity. It just pulls. And as it pulled itself into denser and denser knots, ordinary matter, hydrogen and helium gas, fell into the gravity wells and began to light up. Stars ignited, galaxies assembled, and the structure you see today, the glowing threads and clusters and voids, is the result of nearly 14 billion years of gravity doing exactly what gravity does, pulling things together. The problem is that most of the cosmic web is invisible. The vast majority of its mass is dark matter, which by definition does not emit, absorb, or reflect light. We only know it because we can see its gravitational effects on the things that do shine. Galaxies rotating too fast to hold themselves together unless there's extra mass we can't see. Light from distant objects bending around massive clusters in ways that only make sense if there's far more matter present than the visible stars and gas account for. The web itself is a map of dark matter. The galaxies are just the lights we hang on it to see where the threads run. And even those lights, the galaxies themselves, are mostly hidden. This is where the 2 trillion number starts to hurt. When Consolis's team published their findings, levels a model that extrapolated backward to account for the galaxies too faint, or too obscured to show up in the data. Think of it like standing in a forest at night with a flashlight is closest to you clearly. A little further out, you see back, but you know the forest doesn't stop where your flashlight beam ends. You can estimate how many more trees are out there based on the size of the forest. That's what Consolis did, except his forest is 93 billion light years wide, and his flashlight is the math isn't guessing, modeling. The same kind of technique archaeologists use to estimate the total number of artifacts at a dig site based on the density of finds in a small test trench. Consolis called it an intergalactic archaeological dig. And what the dig revealed, in the early universe, the cosmos that existed in the first few billion years after the Big Bang, unit of volume back then than there are today. Most of them were small, dwarf galaxies weighing in at around a million solar masses. For comparison, the Milky Way weighs roughly 1 trillion solar masses. These early dwarfs were the Bilbox. Over billions of years they merged. The total number of galaxies has been dropping for most of cosmic history because mergers reduce the count even as they increase the average size. Kelly pointed this out explicitly. We know that over the 13.7 billion formation and mergers, solution must have occurred to reduce their number through extensive merging. So when we say 2 trillion galaxies, we're talking about now, or more precisely, we're talking about the galaxies whose light is reaching us now from all across the history of the universe, each one frozen at whatever moment its light, began the journey. Now let's talk about why 90% of those galaxies are invisible. First reason is distance. Light has a speed limit. Nothing in travel fast. That's not a technological limitation. That's a law. The speed of light in a vacuum is roughly 300,000 kilometers per second, and it has been that speed since the beginning of time, which means that light from the most distant galaxies has been traveling toward us. Time has been expanding. The wavelength of light stretches as space stretches. A photon that started its journey in the ultraviolet emitted by hot young stars in a newborn galaxy at Earth today shifted away into the infrared. This is redshift. The further away a galaxy is, the more light has been stretched, and the redder it appears. Hubble was designed primarily to observe visible and near ultraviolet light. It has some infrared capability, but not enough to see the most distant galaxies. Those objects are so redshifted that their light falls almost entirely into the infrared spectrum. To Hubble, they're either invisible or so faint they're barely distinguishable from noise. This is why the James Webb Space Telescope was built. Webb observes in the infrared. It was designed specifically to see the galaxies Hubble couldn't, and with of turning on, Webb started finding them. Galaxies at redshifts of 12, 13, 14, sitting at distances where the universe was less than 500 million years old. Bright, massive, fully formed galaxies that, according to the models, shouldn't have had time to assemble yet. Webb didn't just confirm the 2 trillion estimate. It validated the idea that there's an entire population of galaxies that previous instruments missed completely because they were looking in the wrong part of the spectrum. The second reason galaxies are invisible is dust.
Yo. What up? Yo. Yo. Y'all hit the like button. Where's my actual supporters? Yo, what are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, why is it doing that? Once again, I got trolls in here. Yo, what? Yo, yo. The fuck? What?
Summer's here, and right now get 0% financing for 5 years on all 2026 Silverado 1500 models, with no payments for 90 days.
She's here. Handle this carefully. She's dangerous.
Interstellar dust, the fine particles of carbon, silicon, and metals that float between the stars, absorbs and scatters light. In visible wavelengths, dust can make a galaxy look dim or block it entirely, but infrared light passes through dust much more easily. A galaxy that looks faint and red in visible light because it's choked with dust can shine brightly in the infrared. Webb's ability to peer through dust is one of its most powerful features. It can see into the hearts of star-forming regions, into the cores of distant galaxies, into places that were previously hidden. The third reason is that many galaxies are simply too faint. Low-mass galaxies, the dwarf systems that make up the majority of the early universe's population, don't produce much light. They have fewer stars, and the stars they do have are often older and cooler, meaning they emit less light overall. At large distances, these galaxies fade below the detection threshold of even the most sensitive instruments. They're out there. We know they're out there because the models say they have to be, but we can't see not yet. And then there are the dark galaxies. These are a theoretical class of object that may contain little to no stars at all, just gas. Dark matter holds them together gravitationally, but for whatever reason, star formation never took off. Maybe the gas was too hot. Maybe it was blown out by nearby storm. In a region of space where the conditions just weren't right. We've found hints of these objects. Clouds of hydrogen detected in radio surveys that seem to have mass but no visible counter. Gravitational lensing signals that suggest a massive object where no galaxy appears. Existence is hard because by definition they don't emit much light. If dark galaxies are common, and some models suggest they would add significantly to the total count, and they would be completely invisible in optical surveys. You need gravitational lensing studies or extremely sensitive infrared observations to even have a chance of detecting them. The cosmic web is held together by dark matter, and if dark galaxies exist, they are the ultimate expression of that. Almost entirely of the invisible skeleton structure. Mapping the invisible 90% is the next frontier. Webb is a start, but it's not enough. Webb can see further and deeper than Hubble, but it's still looking at a tiny fraction of the sky. It's small. Its observation time is limited. To map 2 trillion galaxies, you'd need thousands of Webbs, all pointed in different directions, running continuously for decades. That's not happening.
What if the strange lights floating through our night sky aren't glitches, but something watching us? From faceless, glowing entities stepping out of the ocean to mysterious sky portals, wandering fireballs, and multi-sun sightings. Stick around as we explore the most unexplainable glowing entities caught on camera. Strange sea glow. A tourist staying near the beach huts of Bournemouth, England, stepped out onto the walkway one evening and noticed something strange out on the water. A bright light was gliding just above the surface, moving. There was no engine. To this day, he still has no answer to what was moving out there on the water. It's a mystery. A man
They're disappearing.
Misty Spark. Just a week ago, a hiker making his way through the Mata Atlantica forest near Ubatuba, Brazil, stopped cold when he saw a thin orange flame standing straight up above the tree line. He fumbled for his phone and caught a few seconds of it glowing in midair before it flickered out completely. Curious, he shared the clip on Instagram, and viewers identified it as a willow, the wisp, a glowing spirit long said to lead travelers off the trail and deeper into these woods. Fireball. A group of friends wandering late at night in their village in Sarawak, Malaysia, one night found themselves face to face with something none of them could explain. A ball of orange fire sat near the roadside, low to the ground, and instead of burning out, it began to drift toward them, as if it were reacting to their voices. They stood frozen, unwilling to look away, until it slowly faded into the dark, leaving no scorch mark or smoke behind. After this night, they never went outside late at night, convinced something mysterious had been wandering in the village. Ball lightning. On March 10th, 2023, a woman in a small town near Asheville, North Carolina, stepped onto her porch to film an approaching storm. Thunder cracked overhead, and seconds later, a strange glow appeared low over the street, lingering for a moment before fading. Later, some neighbors guessed a transformer had been struck by lightning and sparked on impact, but one of them pointed to reports of ball lightning, a rare glowing orb that some claim can drift along the ground during storms like this one. Mysterious sky portal. A tourist was exploring old stone ruins on a cliff in County Kerry, Ireland, when he stepped through a narrow window in the wall and saw something impossible in the sky. A shining, cross-shaped light hovered over the ocean, pulsing like it was breathing and sending thin white lines out from its center.
That is so cool.
He held his phone steady as it flickered above the waves. Convinced it was a sky portal, he stepped back as it continued pulsing. Rising light. A man was driving outside Sonora, Mexico, late at night when something glowing caught his eye in the dark field. He pulled over, grabbed his phone, and stepped out to get a closer look. A small orange fireball sat low near the ground, flickering like it was alive. Then, without warning, it lifted straight up into the sky, climbing higher and higher until it shrank into a tiny dot before vanishing completely. He stood there in silence, his phone still recording the empty sky, wondering what he'd just watched disappear. Mysterious clouds glow. A woman flying over Miami, Florida, was filming the clouds from her window seat when something below the wing caught attention. Far above, the sun was already setting in soft orange streaks, but sitting low in the clouds was another glowing orange light, small and steady, nothing like a reflection. She kept her camera on it as the plane pushed forward, but could not explain what it actually was. If you have any idea what it was, drop it in the comments below. Skyward mystery. A group of boys was playing football in Houston, Texas, when they saw strange lights climbing into the night sky. 7 glowing orbs rose one after another, drifting slowly in a diagonal line, bright orange against the black sky. For a moment, everyone stopped playing to watch, wondering if it was something otherworldly. Confused, they asked the coach, who said there were fireworks going up, but the lights never sparkled, and that made everyone even more surprised. Warning light. A storm was rolling over open farmland somewhere near Regina, Saskatchewan, when a man stepped outside to film the darkening sky. Far across the field, a single bright orb sat low on the horizon, blinking steadily as the clouds rolled behind it. It wasn't lightning. There was no flash and fade, just a slow, deliberate pulse that kept repeating in the same spot. Out of curiosity, he called his father, who identified it as a warning light on a distant grain tower, lost in the storm haze. UFO over Salem. A man in Salem, Massachusetts, jolted awake at 3 a.m. to a low humming sound rattling his window late one night. When he pulled back the curtain to check, he froze at what he saw. The entire sky above the city was pulsing with deep blue light, washing over the rooftops and buildings in slow, steady waves, almost like something massive was hovering just out of sight and preparing to land. But no official news ever came out.
It's in the clouds. What is that?
Recently, a subscriber shared this clip, filmed by his crew aboard a cargo ship in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Vancouver, Canada. Late one night, something caught their attention just above the ship. A strange light flickering red, green, and white all at once, slowly swaying in the sky. Confused, they kept filming until it drifted past the ship and shot straight up the sky. But no one on the crew could say for sure what it was. If you have any idea, write it in the comments section. Mysterious sky streaks. One night, a worker finishing a late shift at a rail yard near Chicago, Illinois, stepped outside for a break and noticed something strange painted across the foggy sky. Thin red lines streaked and curled above the rooftops, twisting as if someone were drawing shapes in the clouds. Confused, he filmed the moment and shared the clip on Instagram, inviting viewers to guess what it was, but many dismissed it as a hoax. Bright sky portal. One Saturday night, a man in Tulsa, Oklahoma, stood filming a storm rolling across the sky when something far stranger than lightning caught his eye. A thin streak of light stretched out in a perfectly straight line across the clouds, then curled into a bright, swirling circle that hung there, spinning slowly like it was pulling the storm into itself. It flickered brighter for a moment, almost like it was opening wider, before collapsing in on itself and vanishing completely. Viewers online said it looked less like weather and more like a portal tearing open. Flares in the village. After a string of livestock losses, locals in a small village in Sumatra, Indonesia, set up CCTV cameras to catch whatever was going on. What the footage showed left them speechless. Two glowing flares of light drifted through the village, moving low to the ground. They were searching for something. Villagers now believe something ghostly has been walking through the village and causing their livestock losses. Strange sky beam. A man out for a late walk near the coast of San Diego, California, stopped when a thin blue beam cut across the night sky, connecting a bright point above the rooftops to something glowing low near the horizon. It looked almost like a tether, pulling something down out of the dark, steady and unmoving, holding its shape for several minutes straight. He filmed it from a distance, expecting it to shift or vanish. Later, it turned out to be a lighthouse beam.
Choose from thousands of realistic voices to use in your content. Change the way you record podcasts, voiceovers, and branded content with the #1 AI-powered voice generating technology. Stop searching for the perfect voice and stop wasting time re-recording take after take. Try 11 Labs for free and start elevating your content today.
Wait, you can declutter on Vinted? Yep, earn cash from homeware, fashion, sports gear,
Forest Phantom. On October 20th, 2025, a trail camera set up by a hunter tracking deer in the forest in Bakersfield, California, caught something he never expected. A massive, flame-wrapped shape stood glowing between the tree trunks, its edges flickering with an orange glow. It kept moving in the trees as if it were looking for something. No burn marks were found the next morning, No scorched leaves, nothing to prove what had ever been there the previous night. Sky mystery.
Hey Mo, I know I'm not sure.
You may have seen plenty of strange sky sightings before, but this one might be the most bizarre yet. A man waiting for his cab on a foggy road near Seattle, Washington, looked up and stopped breathing for a second. Scattered across the low clouds was a glowing white pattern. Dozens of faint lights arranged and flickering behind the haze, like something massive was pressing against the underside of the sky, waiting to break through. What do you think was really hiding up there? Let me know in the comments. Luminous sky drift.
What the
A man driving along Highway 51 in Montana looked up through his windshield and nearly missed his exit of
There's
what he
something
saw.
else going
Streaks
on,
of
dude.
bright
What the
green
fuck
light were
is
tearing through the
happening, bro?
storm clouds overhead, brighter each time the clouds thinned. His first thought was Starlink satellites catching the light strangely, but when he posted the clip on Instagram, most viewers waved it off as a ground laser bouncing off the cloud base. The purple beam.
Something else going on. What is that, bro?
One night, a crowd of beachgoers walking along the shore near Cocoa Beach, Florida, stopped in their tracks when a glowing purple streak appeared low in the sky, standing eerily still. Curious, they filmed the moment and shared it online, calling it a shooting star, but the viewers brushed it off as an AI-generated clip. Triple sun.
Trip. Whoa. What the
One
fuck?
Sunday afternoon, a man running errands in Miami, Florida, looked up at the sky and stopped cold in his tracks. Where there should have been one sun, there were three, all glowing bright orange through the clouds. Between them floated smaller white lights, flickering like tiny stars trapped inside the haze. He pulled out his phone, hands trembling, and recorded almost a full minute of it before the extra sun slowly faded back into the clouds. Some people online said it was just a rare atmospheric trick, but he swore it felt like reality had glitched right in front of him. Orbs at the door.
Huh? What?
One Saturday
Bruh,
night,
if you
a
go
woman in
outside.
Charleston, South Carolina, was reviewing her Ring camera footage before bed when something on her porch made her stop and rewind. Tiny glowing orbs drifted up to her front door out of nowhere. They hovered near the window for a moment before slipping straight through the glass and into her house. There was no swarm of bugs, no reflection, and nothing outside that could explain them. She checked every room that night but found nothing out of place, and she left convinced that they were fairies. Ghost beam. Back in 2021, a man walking home late one night in Portland, Oregon, glanced up at the sky and stopped cold. A single light kept darting forward in short, dark bursts, and then shooting off again in the same direction, almost like it was chasing something invisible through the clouds. He stood there watching, trying to understand
What the
what
fuck
it
are
was,
you?
but he could not make
Get
sense
off my
of it,
channel.
and left thinking it might have been
Coming in
someone
here
shining a flashlight
cursing
beam
and
into
shit.
the sky.
Spamming.
Mysterious sky glow. A tourist staying at a hotel in Scottsdale, Arizona, stepped onto his balcony for some fresh night air when a strange white glow overhead made him stop mid-breath. It pulsed slowly against the clouds, brightening, then dimming like something breathing behind the haze. When he zoomed in with his phone, a dark shape sat motionless just beneath the light, hovering without wings, without sound, without any visible connection to the glow above it. He watched for nearly a minute before both the shape and the light faded together into the night sky, leaving him wondering what he had actually seen. Mysterious sky formation.
Yeah.
One night, highway patrol officers pulled their cruiser outside Nashville, Tennessee, after spotting something odd drifting above the fields. A cluster of small, glowing orbs was drifting steadily closer, instead of scattering as startled birds. One officer pointed out that it was just a drone swarm
boundaries without ever fully
Shut the fuck
understanding
up and
its
get off my
purpose.
channel.
I want to begin with something that multiple advanced
Yeah, you will get off my channel,
together under
punk.
shared federation, constructed as power plants at a planetary scale, generators of free energy and amplifiers, of consciousness capable of sending a person traveling across this universe without needing a physical ship at all. I want to speak about when this construction actually happened, because the official timeline is considerably shorter than the truth. These structures were built in the aftermath of the Great Flood I have described to you in other transmissions. Constructed as your world's protective boundary was pyramids display.
What are you talking about?
Evidence
Speak.
that it
I'm
endured
doing
the
something.
full
Chill
force of
out.
the flood directly, while the pyramids built
You
after
don't need to be here.
only ever handing the true sophistication.
I'm not translating no words.
Limestone, when exposed to a specific temperature in combination with
You need
precise
to leave.
frequency, can be liquefied entirely, then poured into molds and allowed to solidify
I don't tolerate bullshit.
considerably stronger than any inferior modern equivalent
Really.
your current construction methods rely on. This technique remains in active use today among certain advanced civilizations, a construction medium employed for buildings and structures considerably more sophisticated than anything your current engineering has managed to rebuild. I want to speak now about the small capstone that once sat atop the Great Pyramid, because its true function has been almost entirely lost to your conventional history. That capstone was pure white quartz, covered in gold leaf, functioning as a genuine energy concentrator and wireless power transmission antenna. Precisely the kind of technology your
Eat shit.
Nikola
If you're gonna come in my broadcast and try to fucking control me,
without
nah, bruh.
and without the smooth limestone
Nah.
casing that once covered the entire structure.
This is my channel.
The pyramid can no longer concentrate.
You didn't hit the like
scattered
button,
energy
so you ain't got no
This
type of authority to
sends
even be
energy
talking.
uselessly into the surrounding atmosphere, exactly as it does today.
Man,
Before I
how you like
continue, I
that
want
one?
to mention there is a space built for exploring exactly this kind of ancient technology in far greater depth. A community on school called The Truth Can Change Your Life. For those of you ready to trace this thread further than a single transmission allows. I want to speak now about the actual mechanism generating this free energy, because I think the physics involved deserves real
I don't need your
rather
subscription.
than vague mysticism.
You don't need to be here.
Charged
You don't need to
particles
come
descending
to
from the atmosphere
somebody else's
enter the
channel and try to
crystal
control what they're
capsule,
doing.
bouncing inward off the pyramid's polished white limestone limestone
Not
casing,
here, not
a
ever.
material with genuinely useful piezoelectric and insulating properties. These particles concentrated within what your world calls the Queen's Chamber, where a genuine controlled depolarization towards the ground took place, connecting through underground water aquifer systems running beneath the structure.
Shit, yo, serious just
This created a
broadcast this.
continuous, controlled, and considerably powerful